On November 11th, we celebrate Veterans Day with parades and Old Glory t-shirts, with salutes to those who served and prayers for those who fell. But the version of Veterans Day we know now wasn't always so. It wasn't always a holiday, it wasn't always on November 11th, and, at first, it wasn't even called Veterans Day. The original intent, established in the wake of World War I, was to celebrate world peace. Then the wars never ended, so Veterans Day changed. A lost battalion, a war hero, and a heartbreaking suicide. Let's start from the beginning. November 11th, 1918. At the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month, fighting between the Allied forces in Germany stopped, putting an end to the bloodshed of World War I per the terms of an armistice agreement signed in France that same day. But World War I, the war to end all wars, did not officially end until 7 months later. A veteran at Arlington Cemetery's Veterans Day ceremonies on October 27, 1975. James K. W. Atherton, The Washington Post, November 11, 1919. On the one-year anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, President Woodrow Wilson signed a proclamation commemorating November 11 as Armistice Day. The celebrations were to include parades, public meetings and a 2-minute suspension of business at 11 a.m. The proclamation read, "Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us, and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the councils of the nations." A watch soldier places a wreath at the Tomb of the Unknowns at Arlington National Cemetery in 1977. Frank Johnston, The Washington Post, June 4, 1926. Congress passed a resolution urging state governors to observe Armistice Day with Thanksgiving and prayer and exercises designed to perpetuate peace through goodwill and mutual understanding between nations. At the time, 27 states had already made November 11 a legal holiday. Spec. Austin Allen, who served in Iraq with the 4th Infantry Division, gets a loving look from his wife, Carolyn, during a Veterans Day observance in Washington. Carol Guzzi, The Washington Post, May 13, 1938. More than a decade later, Congress made Armistice Day an official holiday dedicated to world peace. June 1, 1954. World War I was not the war to end all wars, and lawmakers believed that veterans from World War II and the Korean War also deserved their own day of remembrance. So President Eisenhower signed a bill changing the name of Armistice Day to the more inclusive Veterans Day, a holiday to thank all who had served the United States of America. D-Day's heavy toll on Dwight D. Eisenhower, one of America's greatest generals. Veterans, members of the Honor Guard, in 1976 during then Secretary of Defense Donald H. Rumsfeld's address at Arlington National Cemetery. James K. W. Atherton, The Washington Post, October 12, 1954. Eisenhower published a proclamation in the Federal Register, instructing citizens to recognize Veterans Day on November 11. He wrote, "On the day, let us solemnly remember the sacrifices of all those who fought so valiantly, on the seas, in the air, and on foreign shores, to preserve our heritage of freedom, and let us reconsecrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enduring peace, so that their efforts shall not have been in vain." Victoria Ferguson is comforted by her husband, Philip Ferguson, at the grave of her brother, David Taylor Miller, at Arlington National Cemetery on November 11, 2015. Miller, who was killed in Afghanistan, would have marked his 25th birthday that Veterans Day. Matt McLean, The Washington Post, June 28, 1968. 50 years after the Armistice Agreement, Congress passed the Uniformed Monday Holiday Act of 1968, which moved Veterans Day from its original November 11 date to the 4th Monday in October. The act also declared that Memorial Day, Columbus Day and Washington's birthday would be observed on Mondays throughout the year. The Columbus Day holiday is under attack, and so are statues honoring the famed explorer. The new dates were meant to take effect in 1971. as a group of Vietnam veterans hug and pray in 1997. Color guards representing several groups march above them. Photo by Michael Williamson, The Washington Post, October 25, 1971. Veterans Day, federally recognized for the first time on a day other than November 11, is celebrated with much confusion. Many states and most veterans organizations disagreed with the date change and continued to celebrate Veterans Day on November 11th, which held historic and patriotic importance. Vanessa Barnes Hillian, The Washington Post, September 18, 1975. Congress passed a bill changing the observation of Veterans Day back to November 11, where it has remained for the 47 years since. Much has changed in the 98 years since Armistice Day was first observed. Now we honor not just servicemen, but servicewomen. Our wars are not fought with cannons, but with drones. The war to end all wars didn't end war at all. Soldiers have fought and died all over the globe. But through the past century, despite its different names and dates, the purpose of Veterans Day has remained the same: to say thanks